So I don't know how much you've been watching about the whole GameStop saga that has been sort of going on since January. Obviously, it's been very, very focused on Reddit. And what I have witnessed over the past 8 months is like what I chose to write about, which was this like community hive mind of people that has been like the kindest and in a way least crazy part of the internet that I have ever encountered. Like normally what happens, I've seen at least, when you get a whole bunch of people online, especially when they're talking about like massive levels of fraud and corruption, is it just descends into the worst kind of like discourse that you can possibly imagine. It'll end up nearly always in some form of horrendous, like Jews run the world sort of conspiracies. And yeah, it never ends well. People get into echo chambers like we've talked about. But somehow the community that I've been watching, that have been sort of slowly like researching and watching this thing happen with GameStop and Wall Street, they've managed to stay not only really positive, really like nice to each other, and really focused on what they're after. And it's not descended into crazy, stupid madness. And it's made me reconsider whether we've been sort of like, I don't know, bad mouthing the internet. Maybe it's got a lot more to offer than maybe it's more like what we originally conceived it as, rather than the pessimistic way that people have looked at it for the last 5 years.
Yeah. So that's part of the culture of these communities. So the GameStop community that was on, what's the subreddit? Wall Street Bets.
Yeah,
right?
Well, boy, it's come along.
And it is a handful of others, right?
Yeah.
The different communities will have different social norms, and some of them are, let's treat everyone kindly. And that has to be moderated. And it could just be that if someone comes up with something crazy and that's too far, the social mores will just, other communities say, no, you get downvoted and you get, and maybe even moderated away. That's a very, as far as the social interaction goes, that's a very healthy kind of non-terrible community. Now, as far as their actual aims and goals, that's another kind of discussion you could have financially. There's a lot of, I don't know a lot, but there's a decent amount of talk about conspiracy theories about hedge funds who are actually doing a pump and dump kind of thing. They're charging this with through paid shills and accounts. But now I think it has kind of legs of its own. And but you're right, that is kind of a positive story. Now there's going to be, financially, there might be some bag holders of GameStop at the end. And it might be some poor financial decisions that happen. But if you think of most of the communities, if you look at the college football community or the NFL community or ice hockey, they're really pretty positive. They're there to discuss a topic, and they discuss, and there's some kind of maybe a bro culture a little bit, but otherwise, it seems like a good place to be. It's where religion and politics get involved is when things kind of start to descend, because I think the stakes it really has to do with a person's innate, deeply sense of self. If you're challenging someone's religion or political identity or gender identity, it becomes an attack on the person, their identity, not just their fandom. Right. If you attack, I'm a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm from Kansas originally. If you say the Chiefs are terrible, they're never going to win a game. Yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, most people are going to like, that's fun, But if you say that, I don't know, men are terrible, or something about how being male is toxic or something, then like I identify as a man. That cuts me. That cuts me deep, and I will retaliate because that's part of my identity. And the same, so religion, politics, different identities that people will defend and lash out. And then other people like to troll others because they realize that that's a good way to get people to lash out. And so they will do that. It's just kind of the same, just like the traditional bullying, right? You will latch onto something that because it hurts their feelings and it makes them lash out. So it's fun for people to turn the screws a little bit. And that's what trolls are after. They get their kicks from making people angry. And they don't, I mean, many of them might actually be racist or Nazis or something, but I'd say a lot of them are just off to get their kicks from making people mad. Because there's no consequences online.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the troll culture is really interesting. And I haven't studied it, but some people, so Jeremy Blackburn, for example, he's a professor up in the Northeast.
What's his name? Sorry.
He studies,
Who was that you're talking about?
Oh, Jeremy Blackburn.
Jeremy.
Yeah. So he studies. He says that he studies assholes on the internet. That's his job. And so
he'll never run.
Yeah, write that down. Talk to him. He's really great about just studying trolls and how they antisocial behavior. But that's a whole nother kind of part of the internet culture is these kind of toxic things where just trolls are trying to make people angry because it's fun and there's no consequences.
Yeah. Okay, so that gives a nice little segue into this next question. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the online world and the offline world. So a lot of the time when I hear people who would be very big within the internet culture as such, people say like Eric Weinstein, Joe Rogan, people who have huge followings online, but don't really cross over into the sort of mainstream media or real world sort of realm. And I was curious as to, because you'd spoken about this in the TED Talk, actually, about this like feedback loop or the loop of things that happen like from the offline world to the online world and sort of accelerating and sort of contributing to the madness that then comes into the next one, essentially. How much influence do you think the online world really has? Because, so there's quite a lot of times that I see things that are just massive online. Like you couldn't miss it if you tried. Like there's no way you could write a filter good enough to stop seeing information about this. And yet then when you say move to the real world and you ask someone about it, they'll have no idea what you're talking about. Like my book, right. I know, and everyone on the internet at this point basically is aware that some people on Reddit think that the hedge funds in this story have lied and are, still lying. And everyone online is aware that this thing is happening. But if you talk to people in the real world, everyone's like, what? I've never heard of this. So like how much there is?
Right. Well, one of my neighbors actually is a stock trader. Like he's a day trader. That's what he does. And I asked him, so tell me about GameStop. Are you in on that? What do you think? He's like, I stay away from all that. I'm like, you were a day trader, an options trader, and you're not interested in the GameStop, what's going on? He goes, no, that's online memes. So exactly what you're saying, like this offline, online, I think it's two different cultures. Right. And it's the same thing with like, if you look at anything. So a lot of people are really big into the National Football League or even in the UK, the Premier League. Right. And some people could care less. But if you didn't see that goal last night or you didn't see that catch last night, I'd say a third or half of the population is deeply invested in that. And the other half just couldn't care. The same thing. There's an online culture of TikTok dances and Joe Rogan podcasts and GameStop memes that people on the internet are just deeply in. But if you're just a casual Facebook surfer, you don't care. And so to your point, the answer of does it become part of popular culture? I think it does, but it's not like if you're the Ice Bucket Challenge, for example, I think maybe, was it 5-6 years ago? That people actually physically took buckets of ice and poured it over their heads, right? That was an actual physical thing that happened. And so it does find its way into mainstream culture. And then people often will talk about, Donald Trump's Twitter account, right? That's online becoming offline. So it does have a big effect. But as far as the day-to-day updates of things, it does permeate the culture. But I guess in a less obvious way, I'd say. But people will talk. They'll use language now that has made its way from online. And so I'm at a university, right? I've got a bunch of college kids, and they will talk in acronyms. They'll say RIP when something bad happens, which means RIP, which means rest in peace, which means something bad happens. That's too bad. Rest in peace. But that just has become a word people say now. And so the language we learn from online does make its way offline into the real world, but it slowly happens because people aren't that invested all the time. But it's more of a it's not insidious, but it's more of a slow creep of information.
So it's kind of like maybe say kids in the 60s were going to their rock and roll clubs, and the parents were like, what's this new culture? And they had no idea that it was really going on or what was happening there. So you're saying it's just like a new but quite large sort of subculture in a way?
Yeah, it's a new it's a subculture, and there's lots of small tiny pieces of the subculture. So for example, the GameStop subreddit. I mean, how many people are actually trading GameStop right now? Maybe 10,000 or fewer, I would say.
Way more, man. Like so many.
No, currently?
Mm-hmm.
You think so?
Minimum, like absolute minimum, about 700,000 or 800,000.
Really, 700,000 or 800,000?
Mm-hmm. It's so much bigger than.
I mean, back when it first started, it was huge. Like they had to shut down Robinhood for a little while, right? It broke the clearinghouse.
Yeah, well, we don't know what it broke. That's like literally coming out at the minute. Like this is ridiculous. Like people like Ken Griffin lied was trending on Twitter last night, and then the hedge fund came out to like defend themselves on Twitter. It's like that's not the actions of an innocent group, because there was a bunch of text messages released, and like it's so difficult to tell what actually happened at the minute. It's so like a swirling mess of wild accusations.
But is it still? Are people still like this? Is now what 6 months later, or no, 4 months later, or something? Are they still in it? And there's 500,000 diamond hands out there.
Yeah, it's
really. I thought it was. So everyone poured ice on their heads for like a month, and then it went away. Coney 2012 or whatever was a thing for like a month, and then it went away. Mm-hmm. But so this has staying power, is what you're saying.
Yeah, this is what fascinates me about it. And this is what I was saying at the start, is like this is not like a normal online community. Usually they would have got bored, and instead of getting bored, what they've done is they've like tripled, quadrupled down. Like people haven't just like held since January; they've been buying more and more and more. It's insane, man.
I need to get back. So I actually had a handful of my graduate students who actually spent a large amount of their salaries buying this. So
I hope they held on.
Good on them. So that's fine. I didn't realize that it still was so large still, because I followed it and then I got bored with it, just like everyone else, right? But so I assume what happened with everyone. But okay.
No, there's still a very, very hardcore and dedicated group of people who are still thinking that the price is going to absolutely go through the roof again, and that what happened in January wasn't everything coming to a close, that it was some sort of price or market manipulation to make it look like they'd done that. And the past 8 months has been the community all trading theories and trying to put together the evidence as it comes to them as to what the reality is. So we're still waiting to see, what's true and what's not, because it could just still fizzle out and be nothing. But I don't know. That's not what it feels like. to me at least.
Yeah,
But
there's a
I could
lot
be
of
caught up in it, so I find it difficult
yeah.
to judge.
I'm gonna have to think about that a bit more. I, and this is part of kind of that popularity begets, right? This cumulative effect of things that people kind of go into this, and it maybe does it become a conspiracy theory that happens. And then, of course, if you tell someone who has a deeply held belief that this conspiracy theory is, you show them evidence against the conspiracy theory, what do? Well, the response is, "Oh, it goes deeper than we thought." Right?
Yeah.
So no amount of facts will persuade someone if they're committed to that. And this is an interesting thing. You never want to make a person decide or make a person choose between what is true and what they want to be true, because they will always disappoint you. People will seek out facts that confirm their deeply held beliefs. That is the story as old as time. That is one thing that I know for sure. Because it's hard to face that your worldview might be incorrect. And that's a tough pill to swallow.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment for us in the comments below. Let me know what you thought and if you'd like to see more of this from the show. Thank you, and we'll see you again next time.